Hello! In this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the KoddeToonShader and the features of the shader. But before I begin, this model was created by Joachim Häggström, one of our talented students at the school where I work, the Game Assembly in Malmö. So the KoddeToonShader is a ShaderFX shader for Maya. That's a real-time shader that you work with in the viewport in Maya. And the ShaderFX feature came with Maya 2014 LT. So if you have that version or a newer version of Maya, you should have access to the ShaderFX feature in Maya. So I'm going to assume that you've never used the ShaderFX shader and show you how to go from there. So I'll go ahead and start from scratch by clicking Assign New Shader, and you should have ShaderFX here at the top. If you don't, you need to check your plugin manager and make sure you have the ShaderFX plugin loaded. So when I choose this option, I get this result. And I think I've got some tweaked normals here as well, so I'll just go unlock normals. There we go. That looks right. So this is the default ShaderFX shader. And to edit the ShaderFX shader, you can click Open ShaderFX, this big button here, in the tab for the shader itself. This is the only way that you can open this editor, by the way. You won't find it in Windows as far as I know. So click this button, you get this interface where you actually build and manipulate the shaders, and this is your default shader. So first thing I'm going to do is load the KoddeToonShader. So import graph and this one. There we go. So this is the network that I've built, and you can go ahead and modify this and do whatever you want with it, of course, but I've tried to expose all of the relevant parameters that you might want to tweak, loading textures and setting values and enabling and disabling features and such. And it's worth noting that in older versions of Maya and older service packs, you can't have both the ShaderFX window open and get these exposed parameters to show here. So I've got a newer service pack, so it works on my Maya here, but if you on your end, you don't get these parameters, make sure that you don't have this window open. You can't have it minimized either, they won't show. So if this is the case, go ahead and close this window and they should pop up. So I really don't have any further need to be in this editor for this video, so I'll just go ahead and close this ShaderFX editor. There we go. So this is the default view you get first when you load the shader. I've got most of the features disabled, but not all of them. I want to show a few of them to get you started. So the way this shader is designed, it's started out as quite a small shader, and then I just had so much fun working with it, so I just went ahead and added lots of toon shader features that I could think of. So it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife for toon shading, if you will. So it's you can go ahead and try enabling and disabling different features and doing different combinations. I've tried on a few different projects, and I've found that it's quite nice to just try enabling different combination of features to see what looks nice. So yeah, the first thing we could note is that I've got Lambert diffuse light, and I think I'll actually disable cell shading just to show you what that looks like, and I'll disable this feature as well. So here's your Lambert shading going on. Nothing fancy about that. You get that soft fall off on the diffuse light. So I've also got normal map support, which is your regular kind of tangent space normal map. So I think I've got a lot of textures here. This one, guy normal, here's your tangent space normal map. I'll just go ahead and load that. And you also need to click this one here, use normal map. So most of the features, if almost all features I think, have this little checkbox at the top to enable or disable the feature. And as you can see, there's my normal map. Nothing fancy about that. You can, if you want to, alter the amount of the effect you want of the normal map. You can, with most of these features, as with other sliders like this in Maya, you can often type a higher value than the slider would initially let you do. So I'll just leave it at 1 there. And I've got specularity, which is down here, specularity. It's a blend specularity. And there's already some specularity going on here. You have this slider here for uniform specularity, as you can see. And I've also got gloss. and same thing there, you got uniform gloss. So you can set the sharpness of the specular, if you will, with the gloss value. So beyond using uniform values, you have the option to use a specular texture and a gloss texture. So I'll just show you that feature. I don't have a fancy gloss texture or specular texture for this guy, but I made this really simple one just to make the eyes pop a bit more. So if I go ahead and load this one and I check use specular texture, you can see that I still retain quite intense sharp highlight here on the eyes, and the rest of the character here gets less intense specular. So if I were to use this for a gloss texture as well, I can just point towards the same texture, this one, and if I click this one, I should now get more sharp highlights on the eyes and more wide highlights here. And when you use a gloss texture, you can also define what you want the maximum gloss value to be. That means a white color in your gloss texture will represent this gloss value. Same kind of value you tweak when you use a uniform gloss. So if I uncheck gloss texture and set this one to, let's say, 200, you can hardly see it now, so let's just crank it up. There you go. If I wanted my gloss texture's white point to represent this value, I'd need to set the texture max gloss to this value and then check this one. Now a white color in here will represent 200 gloss value. So I think I'll uncheck this. I'll make this a bit wider, something like that perhaps, and really low intense. So you can hardly tell it's there, but just a bit. You see, there we go. So that's specularity. I've also got silhouette outlining, and you've probably already seen and noted the outline. Here's the outline parameters. There's not that many of them, but you can set the width of the outline if you want a thick outline, or maybe you want a really, really thin outline. Yeah, quite straightforward settings. And thing worth noting about this, oh yeah, you can set the outline color as well. So you might not want it pitch black. Maybe you want it to be, you know, dark gray, or maybe you want a white outline. Who knows? So thing worth mentioning with the outline is if you let's just crank it up just to show you the effect. If you have several objects using this shader, you will get issues, I'm afraid. I haven't been able to solve this issue. Yeah, you can see it here. Doesn't sort the objects correctly. You can see it here as well. So for this reason, if you do want to use the shader, you can actually disable the outline feature altogether if it causes trouble for you. And to do this, it's sadly not in this interface. You have to go to the top of the shader and under settings. There are a few parameters or settings in the shader which I cannot have exposed down here among all of these, sadly. So to disable the outlines altogether, go to the top under settings, and outline you can go disabled. And this should, oh yeah, I'd have to do this on this one as well. Oh yeah, they're sharing. Yeah, there we go. Now I've disabled the outline altogether, and there's no sorting issue now. So just a side note, if you could also combine this shader with the Toon outline, which is already in Maya in the rendering module if you wanted to, and that even lets you put internal lines as well if you want to. But this one comes enabled straight out of the box, and if you're just using one object and you want a silhouette outline, this one works quite well. Or sorry, not cell shading, outline. Where was it? Oh yeah, I've disabled it. Silly me. Enable. If I disable it here, I lose the options here. So there's your outline. Yeah, the outline is based, without getting too technical, it's a duplication of the model. I've inverted the normals, and you just tint them in that color. You make sure you don't have it double sided as well. And the thing with this is, as I increase outline width, I'm pushing the new shell outwards. And if you do have hardened edges, I'm afraid that you get cracks going on. I'm not sure if I can showcase it here, but yeah, you can see here at the thumb. So that's also another limitation with this technique of using outlines. So use it if you will, or yeah, don't use it. So let's see what else. Silhouette outline. Oh yeah, I've got something I refer to as light rain tinting, and what that basically means is that you can set your own white point and black point, and I find this to be quite nice, and I'll show you why. We don't need it to be that light, but when I'll have this disabled, I can hardly tell that I've got an outline going on here, right? And it doesn't appeal as much to me if I were doing a toon shader. Maybe for a specific toon look, but I wanted general to be brighter colors, so I could make sure that even though a model was not getting light on some areas, I could make sure that it never turns pitch black. That way I will still be able to see my outline, and some of the other features here as well will pop better if you make sure that you never have a black area, if you will. You can even go ahead and tint this in a color if you want to. So I could make sure that, for instance, have a bit, you know, colder colors in dark areas, and in light areas I could go ahead and make sure that the light was a bit warmer, and I get more of this look, you know. I'll just over exaggerate and you can see. So that's the light range tinting. I think I'll go ahead and remove the coloring and just leave it at a dark color there. So yeah. What else? I've got cell shading, which was enabled initially. I just disabled it to show you the Lambert feature. So here at the top, cell shading, you just check use cell shading, and when you do, you get the feature enabled. And you have this input which lets you choose how many levels of cell shading you want. So I've got 3 now. You can see I've got the light area, the middle gray area, and the dark area. I've also got something called cell transition sharpness. That is how sharp you want this transition between the areas to be. So a high value will get you really sharp results, and a low value will get you, you know, a bit of smoothing or fading between the transition. So I'll go up to 5 or 10 or something like that. And as I increase this value, you can see that you can choose how many cells you want. So you can get the right kind of cell shading look that you want. And I don't think there's a cap for this one, so you can write really high numbers if you want to get this banding kind of look. But I think I'll go back to 3, and I'll also show you that I have this option called use custom horizontal cell ramp as well, which basically means that you can paint and define your own kind of cell shading ramp, if you will. I've got an example texture here just to show you. So I could use this ramp instead to map out where I want the dark, the middle area, and the white areas to be. So this is going to equate to areas that are not lit at all on the very left side, and this is fully lit areas. And everything in between here is different variations or different amounts of the object being lit. So this is more lit and not lit. So let's try loading that and see what happens. Or you can also tint this with coloring if you want to as well. So I'll point towards, I think it's called custom ramp, this one. Tried a few different ones, but let's choose this one. And I'll click use custom horizontal ramp. And now you can see I can position exactly where I want this to be, and exactly how light or dark or what kind of color I want. Yep. Okay, what else do we have? We have something which I think, if you ask me personally, this is the most fun feature in this shader. It's a screen space crosshatch. So what this means is you'll get hatching in the dark areas of the character. So if I enable this, I need to point towards the texture as well to get it working. I've got a few different ones. I think I'll use this one. And as you can see, just by doing that, I get this cross-hatching effect. And it has 2 layers actually. I'm not sure if you're able to tell. I can reduce the tiling here, and I'll put this one at 2.5 for instance. So in the middle area here, I've just got 1 layer of crosshatch, and in the dark area I've got the same. This very layer continues into here, and it adds another layer as well, which is going that direction instead of this direction. So that's going to be set up pretty decently for you right from scratch, but there's a lot of different parameters for you to tweak here. And I'm going to try to go through them quite quickly, because I do realize that if with no explanation, this might not seem that logical or easy to understand. So yeah, you need to check this one to use it to begin with. You want to take a texture which has a hatch pattern, and ideally it needs to be a tiling texture. I don't think this one tiles perfectly, but yeah, good enough. You got this opacity slider where you can set the opacity of the crosshatch effect. I've got a U tiling and V tiling value, which is how often you want this texture to tile. Now this is a screen space feature, which means that when I pan the camera, or if the character were to move around on the screen, the crosshatch would be stay in place relative to the screen. So I think it works nice for just presenting still characters like this. It gets a bit funky as you move around. I know that there are a few games out there which uses screen space technique, but I think that most of you guys will probably use this shader to present your toon work stills for your portfolio or whatnot. So the U and V tiling is going to be tiling according to your screen space size, so the size of this viewport. So if I had a monitor which was a 4:3 aspect ratio, or if this window was more square, I'd probably want to use the same value here and here, since it's going to be a square aspect. But since this one is a bit wide, I can use a higher value here and a lower value here. So what else? I've got something called fall-off distance. Now fall-off distance is how smooth you want this transition to be from the middle area here to the white area, and from the dark area to the middle area. So if I increase this value, I should get a wider transition, or actually it fades into this area, not out towards that area. So a higher value will get smoother results. A lower value should get really sharp results. Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend using it like this. If you wanted it to be sharp, you can get it matching up exactly with the cell shading if you click this one called based on cell shading. And even then, you might want to use just a little bit of smoothing. So I think I'll uncheck this, and I'll leave this one at 0.1 perhaps. What else? Well, there's something called single rotation and single threshold. Now, threshold is going to be where you want the single layer. I'm referring to this being a single layer of threshold, and the double parameters, I'm referring to this one being both the single layer and another layer. So the double parameters refer to this in the dark area, and the single ones refer to this one in the middle area. So single rotation is actually rotating this layer here. So if I put it at 0, you can see that they go this direction. I had it at 45. I could go 90 perhaps if I wanted to. And the reason I have rotation to begin with is that since I wanted to have darker or the double effect here, I wanted to have these lines, the second layer, to go the other direction, and then I needed to rotate them, if you will. So they're using the same texture, which has a hatch going horizontally, but I can still get them going in different directions, since I can use different rotation values for the single layer and the double layer. So yeah, you can see I can rotate it around. The threshold is going to be where you want that single layer to appear on your model. And I've got the same thing for the double threshold. So I could remove the double altogether if I put it at 0, and now you can see that I can set the single one even to go into the dark area. At this point I can't get it to go like that, because this is all the same amount of lighting, which is 0 actually. But you can go ahead and tweak these a bit. I left them at 0.6 and 0.3 as default values. And last parameters here is something called double U offset and double V offset. And to show you this, I could go ahead and actually set the rotation to 0. And if I set these to 0, I do have the double effect going on here, but since they are applied on exactly the same area, you won't be able to tell pretty much. So I've got 2 layers of crosshatch exactly on top of each other, and these parameters will let you offset the second layer from the first one. So if I wanted the second layer to be offset a bit in the vertical direction, I could just offset the V value a bit like that, and now you can see that there's a second layer. And I probably, if I wanted to be halfway in between, I would have to, yeah, you can just try it out and see whatever you think works for you. But the offset values are for you to be able to offset the second layer if you want to do that. So I think I'll just go undo for a bit here to get my original look back, something like that. And let's stick with that. I might actually increase this a bit, maybe like 8 and 6, and let's put opacity at something like this. We don't need to go overkill on this one. So that's a screen space crosshatch effect. I've got hemispherical ambient light, and that should be here at the top under ambient light. So hemispherical as in I've got one color from the top and one from the bottom. That means let's go ahead and actually dim this light down a bit, something like, yeah, maybe like that. No, I wanted that. Yeah, that's good. So here we go. If I increase this ambient light, this one is a multiplier just for how much of that ambient light you want. Now the ambient light is going to be smooth in the sense that it doesn't affect the cell shading. So if I were to actually decrease this intensity altogether, you've now got the crosshatch pattern all over, since the crosshatch doesn't take the ambient light amount into account. And I chose to have it that way. I wanted the ambient to feel more smooth, and just as a extra effect you can add on top of your already lit character, if you will, or lit object. You can modify it in the shader if you wanted to affect the cell shading and the crosshatch as well, but this is a choice. I wanted it to work this way. So I think I'll just leave it like this for now, just to show off the effect even better. So I can go ahead and disable the crosshatch. And this is the hemispherical ambient. So what that means is that you've got one color from below and one from the top, and you can choose which colors you want. So all surfaces pointing downwards are going to get a red color, and all upwards are going to get a blue color in this case. So it can be nice to, you know, break up your model if you've got a quite monotone coloring going on and you just want to add some variation. This can work well for you, I think, at least in my experience. So let's just try and bring back the light again, and I think I'll it's way too much of everything right now, so I could, you know, lower this value a bit, and maybe if I still think this is too bright, I can go ahead and lower that one as well and find a nice balance, which I think works for my character. So what else do we have? I can enable the cross-hatching again. I think yeah, I'm going to show you another kind of a gradient, if you will, and for that I think I'll actually disable this again, and I'll go down to this one called use world space gradient. Maybe I should have put a world space position gradient in there as well, because what that means is you can get one color from you know, from the bottom and one from the top, and get a transition in between there. And I think there's an option as well. I can't get it down here sadly, but if you go to the top at setting, you can choose which direction you want this world space gradient to be. So if you wanted, if you have a, I don't know, let's say you have a rifle or something and you want the world space gradient to go left to right, or maybe you want it to go front to back, or yeah, this way, you can use the axis here. So thing with this one is, sadly I didn't figure out an foolproof way to get the bounding information, so you have to set the Y minimum and Y max yourself. So with this character, I think if we were to look around, you can see it's quite a big guy, and if you want to get it exactly right, you could go ahead and use the measure tools in Maya if you wanted to. So I'll just click here and I'll click over there, for instance, and I can just move this downwards a bit. Now he's standing on the grid, so the Y minimum will be 0 and the Y max will be 31.14. So let's undo that. I need to go in here and I need to fill in, let's see, 31.14. And if I enable this, I can now, as you can see, I get this gradient with these colors, the base color and the top color. So, you know, maybe you want some coloring down here to better ground the character to the surface he's standing on, or maybe you just want to tint it a bit because you think it looks better with a bit of variation when it comes to color. So I'll just go overboard and show you as well. I could go red down here, and I could go, let's say, blue at the top. So that's the world space gradient. And now I'm not showing you. I've got two features left to show you. I've got the diffuse texture as well. Quite standard, nothing fancy, but of course very much needed. And I wanted to show you just all of the other features on a solid color first. So of course I've got the diffuse texture. Let's go ahead and choose, I think it's called Guy Albedo, this one. And I need to click this one to enable it. And there's our diffuse texture. Now, if you don't want, maybe you don't want the Lambertian light, you can easily just go ahead and click use uniform white diffuse light, and that will kill the Lambertian light altogether. So now you just have a uniform white lighting, if you will. And maybe you just want to use the crosshatch to define the dark areas. Maybe you want that look, and you can go ahead and just click this one, for instance. And if you don't use a diffuse texture, you can choose what kind of solid color you want for your model with this one here. So maybe you want it, I don't know, to have some kind of clay color or something, just to show it off with no diffuse texture. So last feature I'm going to show you is called, let's see, use vert as in vertex color R channel for light modulation. Might sound a bit advanced or technical, but what that means is you can use vertex color, the red channel. If you paint in that, you can define which areas you want to receive light more or less. So let's say, for instance, that you wanted this character's face to be lit most of the time. Maybe you don't want dark areas to pair inside of the face area here. You could check this feature and paint more in this red vertex color channel, and you would always get the light, not always, but the face would tend to be lit more. So in the light calculation, where it takes the light vector towards the normal vector, I just go ahead and add the vertex color into that equation. And actually I take the vertex color and shift it so it can both be positive and negative, and that way you can also make areas that you want to tend to be dark, so you can even do that as well. So I'm just going to show you how that works and try to do it quickly. So I'll go to mesh display, I'll go color set editor, and yeah, I've actually got a layer already. I can go ahead and show you that as well, or instead. So I've already got a vertex color set here called light mod, and to make that work with the shader you need to go at the top under settings and you need to type in exactly the same name, so light mod, as your vertex color set. Now if I go down to, if I scroll down and enable the use vertex color, vert color R for light modulation, it shouldn't look like this. But yeah, let's see what happens. I can go to mesh display and I should be able to see the vertex color set here. Yeah, this is the one. So what's going on here? Light mod. Did I type it in wrong? Light mod or oh yeah, lie mod. That's what you get for spelling mistakes. Light mod. There you go. Light mod. Light mod. Okay. So here we go. Click this one. I need to disable showing the vertex color there, and there we go. That's what the vertex color light modulation does for you. So I've now made sure that the face area is going to tend to be more lit all the time, and I've also, just to show the other way around, I've made sure that this area below the nose is going to tend to be more dark all the time. So it might not make that much sense in all cases, but for some cases I think that this can be quite nice, because I can now make sure that, you know, I never get dark areas in the middle of the face, even though rest of the body might have it. So it's more of a stylistic choice, nothing realistic about it, but I think that it can be a nice feature to have. So I'll just switch it on and off to show you again. So this is without and with this feature. And I'll just enable it again to show you. Since it just uses the red channel, it doesn't care about what you put in the blue or the green. So all of this area is, or almost all of this area is 0.5 in the red channel. And 0.5, that is halfway in the red channel, means no difference at all. So most of these areas are not affected by this feature. These areas are actually from an ambient occlusion bake, where I baked to the vertex colors. So since these areas are darker, they're going to tend to get less light. Yeah, you can do that as well. And for these areas, I use the Paint Vertex Color tool. And since these are fully red, that is 1.0 in the red channel, they will tend to get light a lot more often. And since this area is 0.0 in the red channel, it won't get light as often. So yeah, that's the Vertex Color R light modulation feature. So I think that's about it. I'll try to check the forums and see what you guys have to say about this shader, and please do let me know how you find the shader and if you find anything missing or not working correctly. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have fun working with the shader.